Hey, new Met fans, and we are back for another episode of the Terry Collins Show, presented by Tunnel to Towers. Donate just $11 per month by going to t2t.org. That's T2T.org. I'm John Arezzi. And joining us, direct from Port Saint Lucie, Florida, the former manager of the New York Mets, the last skipper to take them to the World Series, which we all remember, especially these days, the man all Met fans appreciate and always have, Mr. Terry Collins. Terry, welcome back.
Good to see you, John. Hopefully this is maybe the start of a streak. We can get them going.
We need a streak, Terry. The team definitely needs a streak. We do have a great show lined up today, and it is 4th of July weekend. There's a lot to cover, but before we get into all of that, this has been a tough week. A tough year for the Met fans, but especially a really tough week with the dismissal of Carlos Mendoza last week. You've been reached out to by so many media outlets over the last week, from Craig Carton on WFAN, which I listened to. Dan Martin in New York Post wrote with you. You just did ESPN radio. So everyone is reaching out to you. But my question is that, tell us where you were when you heard about Mendoza and your initial thoughts about the dismissal of Mendy.
Yeah, well, I was actually at a gym working out when a guy came over with his cell phone and said, "Have you seen this?" And I, of course, had not. Immediately left, went out and made a phone call to Carlos to see how he was doing. And I really liked him. I still do like him. He's a great guy. I thought he did a good job. I thought he said the right things, held himself accountable, held the players accountable. But as we all know, in a situation that he was in, where expectations are high and results were low, someone's going to fall on the sword. And as we saw last year, there was the coaching staff, and now he was next. So I felt terrible because it's not fun. I mean, as a manager, you're sitting there and you're pulling everything what you've seen, heard in your entire career, try to use it to get your team going, and it just wasn't working. And ultimately, you're the guy who's responsible for it all, which he was the one who said that. And it is a business. It's just a shame when a good baseball man has to take the hit for a team that just has not got the results that they should have.
Yeah, it's certainly been a tough season, and with all the changes in the off season. But from what you're saying, Mendoza is doing okay, and he's going to land on his feet somewhere. He's a good baseball man.
He'll be managing back in the big leagues within the next 2 years for sure.
Yeah, and universally well liked by everybody. No one has pointed the finger at him. It's like everyone feels bad for him, and everyone kind of knew. When you're the manager, as you don't put the team together. I mean, you are there to manage what they give you. So in this situation, in this year, it had to be difficult. It had to be difficult for anybody, no matter what manager you have ever been in the history of the game. When you're handed this plate and say, "Here you go, make this happen," and it's got to be tough. And you've been there yourself with teams that you're like, "How do I get the most out of these guys?" And it's just not the right mix or chemistry sometimes.
Yeah, and that's where it's got to start. I mean, he went through so many changes. I look at what happened in last winter where he lost his entire coaching staff. I mean, and by the way, those coaching staff, those guys, they have tremendous relationships with players that are still in that locker room. And so you bring in a whole new coaching staff, and sometimes the players, John, there's a theory about sometimes there's too much information. And so you're here, you've gotten comfortable with, some certain amount of coaches, and now here comes a whole new system, some whole new ideas, and sometimes that's tough for players. They look, I've had success doing it this way, and now you're going to make a change. I mean, and so that was difficult. Then they have basically a new roster. Got rid of some very, very key players from the teams in the past, and here you got now his job is to try to mold these guys together. And then you got in spring training where a couple of guys are you got to take care of Robert because you might get, you got to take care of Polanco. And so instead of getting them on the field and letting them play together, letting them be around each other, he had to do a tremendous job of, okay, I can only play this guy here and this guy there. That's tough. That's tough when you're trying to build a winning Major League Baseball team.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. And well, this season is certainly really what's going on this season is just something I can't even believe, but we're going to get into it. We do have Laura Albanese coming on with us, and Steve Gelbs has agreed to come on with us as well. And of course, those two, they shoot straight from the hip like you do. So we're looking forward to hearing what they have to say about everything that's going on. And, we're not going to have all gloom and doom today. There'll be a little levity in the show. Steve is entertaining in some of the things that he does. And so anyway, we'll get to all of that. We got some special guests lined up for later today on the show. It's going to be a good one. But it's great to see you again, Terry. And let's get right to the leadoff. The Mets are in Toronto and Atlanta this weekend for the 4th of July, but there have been plenty of fireworks at Citi Field over the last several days. Joining us to discuss it all, we welcome SNY Steve Gelbs and Newsday's Mets beat writer, as well as SNY analyst Laura Albanese. Steve and Laura, great to have you back with us on the Terry Collins Show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to be here.
I'm glad you guys could make it. How's everything above the border? Good?
Better than it is below the border right now.
Certainly.
I'll tell you what, I hope it's cooler up there than it's going to be in New York this week.
Oof.
Ooh, I heard about that. That's really bad. No, it's gorgeous right here, now. And the World Cup is going on, and the soccer fans are out in droves. It's fantastic.
And it's Canada Day tomorrow, I think. So we're expecting quite a time here. These few days in Toronto.
Great.
Yeah, and it's Canada Day. It's the national holiday too. In a few days, and I think for the day game, and they wear their red uniforms, so that's a big holiday up there. And the weather must be nicer. I'm here in Nashville, where they're warning people not to go outside. It's going to be 100 plus, 110 heat index, and so anyway, it's going to be hot. But it's it's certainly hot around where you guys are. You've been at ground zero, so to speak, both of you, covering what's been going on with the 2026 season. Before we get to that, I know you're both in Toronto. I watched the coverage. I've always been a fan of Bo, since the days I did the podcast with John Gibbons for the Blue Jays for 2 seasons. And I always loved Bo Bichette. And to see him go back to Toronto was an emotional experience. He got very emotional in the dugout. So as best as you can, because you guys are all busy interviewing and doing your own thing, but talk to us about the return of Bo Bichette to Toronto, what it may have meant to the fans up there, and what both of you have experienced over the last 24 hours with Bo going home, so to speak, for this series.
I mean, I think it was interesting. He got very warm applause from the fans. I was walking the concourse, and they have these fan shops on the concourse over at Rogers Center, and they still sell Bo Bichette's jersey. I mean, he is beloved here. He's obviously a homegrown talent, and to see him break down the way that he did, you really had to feel for him. Honestly, you go on Twitter or whatever else, and people will be like, well, he took the paycheck, but it doesn't matter sometimes how much you're getting paid for something. You're still a human being. Your bank account could be zero, it could be in the tens of millions, but you're still a human, and you can really tell how much this place meant to him, and really how much losing Game 7 still stings for him. And certainly juxtapose that against what's going on with the Mets right now, which looks like we're headed toward a fire sale. This cannot be an easy position for him to be in.
No.
Yeah, and I also think with Bo, if you look at the first 3 months of this season, I know when he talks on camera, generally he's very professional, very stoic. And yes, yesterday, listen, it surprised me. It always is going to surprise me when you see that level of emotion on camera from anybody, because these guys do such a good job of holding it in. But Bo has been very open, especially early this season, about how difficult the transition has been. Not necessarily in a negative way, but just he's talked about how surprised he was by what pressure you put on yourself when you leave a place that you've known for so long and you're comfortable with so many people, and you you're that big, shiny new object that's brought in, just how much pressure you put on yourself to perform for a new fan base, a new group of teammates, coaching staff, front office. And I don't think he fully anticipated that. And so I think, it's probably a larger discussion to be had, even when you talk about the 2026 season and what's gone wrong. But there is such a human element in the game today that probably gets lost when you just talk about projecting out what's going to happen in a season, because there's change. There's a lot of change. You've got to adjust to so many new things. And especially for a guy like Bo, who is, again, such a professional and wants so badly to contribute and to win, I think the early season struggles and putting that load on himself to make it happen and have that Mets moment and make it happen quickly probably, and Terry will talk to this, always has, it probably ends up working further against you than anything else when you try so hard to perform.
Yeah, it's got to be a pressure that none of us can understand. Terry probably understands it better than most too, being in the dugout for as long as he has been. But this season, when I talk about you being in ground zero right from the beginning of this and seeing this all unfold, Steve, then Laura, walk us through what it's been like for both of you covering the team this year, especially during the last week. And then I want to get Terry's opinion, because he's been reached out to more by media than in years, probably.
I almost gave you a call, Terry.
So let's hear your take
the
on.
only one who didn't.
So what it's been like?
So you kind of two parts to that question. What it's been like, first of all, in the last week. The last week has been, honestly, I've been around now 13 seasons around this organization, which just seems crazy to me. But I can't believe how fast it's gone. But this has been one of the hardest weeks by far that I've ever covered, especially because of how well respected and beloved Carlos Mendoza was and is. And I've been really pleased that the response across the board has been it's not his fault. He's a good baseball man. He's a great person, because I think it was important to get that out there. And I'm pretty sure that everybody who wasn't aware is aware. And I think everybody, including the people who ultimately made this decision to move on, desperately want to see Carlos get another chance at this somewhere. And I hope that he will. But listen, it was, that 6-error game was just one of the most unfathomable games I've ever witnessed in person. The follow-up the next day with a couple more errors that cost the team. It's been really difficult to watch what has happened here, because I think everybody anticipated that at some point, the run is going to come, or they're going to get at least better. And every time, they win the series against the Braves, you think it's coming. Every time there are these steps forward, it's just an enormous step back. And I think that's kind of been the story of the season. And when you ask how the entire season has been, it's been a really strange year, to be honest, because I think it wasn't just the Mets front office, every projection had this team being at minimum a playoff team. And when you got there and when you got on the ground, I think, again, back to this human element, what I didn't anticipate was how much change at one time could really hamstring a group. It's not that you just changed over an entire roster, you changed over an entire coaching staff, and you had the WBC to boot in spring training. And it just felt like there was never a chance for this collection of individuals to come together as a team. And I don't think any team has ever needed to get off to a hot start more than this team did, because it's a fan base that we know is very passionate, and they were very angry about losing their favorite players this offseason. And so they were ready to pounce if it didn't go well. They were kind of primed to not like this group of players, and I totally understand that. And so when it all started to go south very early, there was no real way to get through it. And I think, Terry, one of your former guys I was talking to during the Cubs series, Michael Conforto, he said it best. He looked at me and he goes, I have no idea what's happening over there. I don't know any of those people anymore. The only guys that I played with were Francisco Lindor for a year and David Peterson, who's now on the Cubs. That's how quickly the change has come. But what I do know is that there is literally no harder place to get off to a tough start than Flushing, New York. And what it takes to get through that is a group that is so tightly knit to come together and walk through it together. And so to not have that made it, in his opinion, almost impossible. And I think that's what we've seen.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think when we look back on this season, we're going to talk a lot about the human element and how maybe it was pushed to the side a little bit too hastily. I was speaking to Darryl Strawberry last week on my own podcast, and he had a few interesting things to say. He was around the team during spring training, and he was like, it's not that there aren't leaders in that clubhouse. And we can attest to that. There are people individually who are leaders in that clubhouse. It's just that there has not necessarily been that moment where they've all come together and decided, hey, we're tired of losing. He was talking about 1985 and how they lost that year, and how in 86, it just became a sort of like an us versus them mentality that I feel like this current Mets roster can't quite have, just because, again, you're talking about different pieces coming together in a really high pressure situation. And that's not conducive to success. It's interesting. We've heard Luke Weaver actually talk about it time and time again. And you go to Luke Weaver because he is such a good talker, and he does have a very good perspective. And if you really listen to what he says, he continues to say the same thing, which is that you can't play scared. And so if a player is saying something like that you can't play scared, that you have to go out there with confidence, it means that maybe he's looking around and perhaps seeing that that's an element that's lacking. And then you also have to look between the lines when you talk to a guy like Bo Bichette. He addressed the media, which, good for him and Francisco Lindor. Bo is a new player, but he was still one of the two players that spoke to the media pregame after Mendoza got fired. And he has said it in the past, and he said it again. We are still searching for our identity. That is not something that you want to hear in June. By June, you should have an identity. It's so hard to play in this high pressure environment when you don't feel like yourself. It seems like Bo doesn't feel like himself. Juan Soto is an incredible player, but now you're looking at a situation where you might be wasting Juan Soto's best years. And all of that's coming together to create kind of a pretty sad tableau at Citi Field. You go in there and it's frankly, for lack of a better term, a little bit depressing. Guys are certainly feeling the weight of their failure. And at this point, that's all you can call it. It's failure. And these are exceptionally talented players who certainly don't want to fail, but also hold themselves to these high expectations. And they just haven't been able to put it together. And now you have a situation where Andy Green is taking over, and that's great. But he's an interim in the true sense of the word, in that at the end of this season, he's going back to the Mets front office because that's where he wants to be. So, you take all these elements and you're like, wow, the white flag is essentially being waved. That's what it feels like right now. And I think that's palpable throughout the clubhouse.
Well, I don't know where to start. Again, I'm not on site like you guys are. I only look from the outside, and that being said, I make my own thoughts to myself about what's going on. I mean, and what you both have said is very true. I mean, the changes they made last winter were impactful. The fact they lost the entire coaching staff. And if you are, and I'm just going to throw a name out there, let's just say you're Francisco Lindor and you really have a great relationship with the hitting coach, and now he's gone. And so here comes maybe the third hitting coach in your 5 years with the Mets. New philosophy, new ideas. You know what? Veteran players, star players, they have the programs, and now we're going to disrupt that. The same with the pitchers. You've had Jeremy Hefner was there for so long, and now so here comes some new thoughts, some new processes. Some of those guys don't need new processes. It's worked, and what worked is going to continue to work. Spring training. And I wasn't there, but I read, I read the newspapers every day, and I'm saying, wow, they spent all spring worrying about not playing this guy so he doesn't get hurt. Oh, we can't play this guy because he might get hurt. Oh, we got to give this guy an extra day. Oh, we got to get, it used to be you got the infielders always played together because you want them to get to know each other. What kind of range does he have? What does he go better, right or left? The outfielder, play them together. You wanted to always make sure. I always wanted to make sure some of my starting pitchers pitched to certain guys who caught. It's so you wanted to bring them all together, and they were unable to do that. And now, obviously, with all of the injuries that have occurred, it's still in disarray. But the one thing that scares me, guys, about anything, you cannot let what's going on affect those new young players. That is not acceptable. I will go back to my last game the year before I left. In 2016, we won the wild card in Philadelphia. Big celebration, great time. 1 year later is my last game with the New York Mets. And in that meeting, I told those guys, those of you who were here last year, that's what you better remember, what it's about. Not this year. Forget this year. And I go back, remember 1 year, years ago with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I was the AAA manager, and Jim Leland called me in September. In September, and when you're a minor league manager, is a big time, especially in AAA, because you got players who are going to get called to the big leagues for the first time. They're going to finally get their chance. And Jim called me, he said, we're not calling anybody up. Nobody. This is not what I want them to experience, what's going on here in Pittsburgh. And that is very, very critical right now, because those guys can look around and they might see that player who, he got 2 hits tonight. Well, you lost 4-3. Well, I got my 2 hits. It wasn't my fault. I pitched my 2 innings and I had no runs. It wasn't my fault. And so, and that's the stuff that, hey, look, it's everybody's fault. We are in this together. And that's the one thing I used to try to get through the coaches. You know what? The 26 guys, and back then we had 25. The 25 guys in that locker room, that's the only thing we have to worry about. Nobody else. And what we've got to do is make sure those guys every single night know that this is the biggest game of the year. Tonight, because you may not play another game. And so as I watch them play and I listen to you guys talk, and what's going on again is that, well, geez, I just don't want to screw up. I just don't want to be the guy that screws up. Just like Luke Weaver said, you can't play scared. You got to go play, man. You got to go play. You got to go play as hard as you can for as long as you can, because you never know when the last day is going to happen where you don't ever play the game again. And I had a player many years ago came to me one time. He said, the one thing I don't ever want to let happen is to look back on my career and say, geez, I wish I had played a little harder. Don't ever let that happen. And so, you talk about grinded out time. It's grinded out time. And I'm telling you guys, and this is coming from the manager. In that city, I don't think you rebuild in New York City. I think you may retool, but you do not rebuild. And if you're talking about moving all that big money, like we can't afford it, the team can't afford that stuff. No, you teach them to grind it out. This is the perfect time to teach what it's going to be like to play in the pennant race. You know what? Grind this damn thing out. This is where you learn how to grow in the big leagues. And so I'm a little against just selling off the pieces. I know that's easier said than done, but this is where I think the true leaders in that clubhouse, they can't be worried about who they offend, unless if they're talking about winning. That you just talk. It's about breeding winners. And for many years in the wintertime, I'd talk to the general managers and they'd say, hey, we got a chance to get this guy or that guy. I wanted the guy who's won, from a team who won, who knows how to win, who wants to win, and expects to win. I took a poll one year, years ago. Walter Alston's the guy who told me about to do it, so I wanted to try it. And I went to every player and I said, what's your goals for the year? And you know what I wanted to hear? Win. I didn't want to hear, I want to hit 25 homers. Oh, I want to hit 275. Oh, I want to drive in 80 runs. I wanted to hear, I want to win. And that's what Walter told me. He said, you could go, he said, I used to go back, and he said, of course, this is, he was been retired for a number of years. And he said, we had that great pitching. He said, it was all about, Sandy Koufax never said, well, I want to win 30 games, 25 games. So I want to win the World Series. That's it. I want to win the World Series.
But Terry, not to interrupt you, but I just find it so interesting because I think, and this is not just a Met problem in the game today, but every year it seems like we're going further down a rabbit hole where we've lost the plot, right? I was talking to AJ Minter about this maybe a week or two ago, because he's one of these guys now that he's old school enough. He was in the game before everything with the analytics and the data and all that started leaking in. And there's a place for it. Don't get me wrong. Like there is definitely a place for this data, and it helps predict certain things. But he said he watches the game now, and he'll see a guy will make an out, and the first thing they'll do is look up at the scoreboard to see what their exit velocity was. Or they'll give up a hit, but they'll feel good about it because the horizontal break was exactly where they wanted it to be. And the same thing goes for what you were talking about too with like, we're going to sit guys in spring training because we're going to help protect them. It feels to me that the more that they try to protect, whether it's the pitchers or the position, the more injuries there are. There are more. Everything they're doing with pitchers is leading to, it's not helping. It's certainly not keeping them healthy. And it feels like anybody needs to be the first to just put up their hand and say, you know what? This isn't working. We're going to be the outlier organization who's going to do it a different way. Again, it's not that we're saying there's no place for any of this stuff, but it's become the only thing that matters in so many respects. And that to me is a real sad stuff.
But I'm going to tell you again, I go back because I've done a number of shows where everybody's talking about Senga. You know what? In Japan, between starts, he throws 120 pitches, not 40, 120, so that the game is easy. And this is a game about we used to train him in spring training for 162 games, not just the first week of the season. You got them ready so they could sustain their conditioning for 162 days. The whole thing was about running and throwing, right? Today, they don't run anymore. I've witnessed it. They don't run. They don't throw. I mean, how many calf injuries do you have to have before you realize some of the legs aren't in shape? Huh?
Right.
How many do you have to have? Yep. And so I look back, and sounds like I'm pointing fingers, and I'm not there, so I'm not. But I'm looking at for the same thing like you guys do, and said, how can this all of a sudden just happen? They got a good team. They got good players, man. You know what? And you're right. So I had a player tell me, a guy who just retired, who I've known for a long time, talked to me about one of the things he started hearing were players talk about war and how war is how they get paid. So they don't want to attempt to steal in case they get thrown out because it chips off their war. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get paid? Every year, if you win that trophy in October, you get $350,000 bonus.
So I know we're going. I know you got more to do here. But one last quick story. I remember having a conversation in 2024 with Jose Iglesias, who said that he was constantly getting dinged, and it was part of the reason that he was in AAA and not getting big league offers, because when it got to 2 strikes, his chase rate went up. And he said, you want your chase rate to go up with 2 strikes because you're protecting the plate. That's the point. And front offices would ding him, and he would talk to young players, and they would be like, what are you talking about? You're swinging more about, you're expanding the zone with 2 strikes. Because again, it's not like we've lost the plot. It's not about what do you need to do to win in that scenario. It's what does the final product say in your chase rate numbers, and that's how these guys get paid. So it's very difficult for them to play the game what traditionally was properly, because they're going to get hurt doing that. You know? It's very hard.
I mean, I remember talking to Paul Blackburn, and when he was sent down, I think he was doing rehab or whatever, and he was like, all the young kids talk about is this stuff plus.
Stuff plus.
And I was like,
yeah.
what? Yeah, and it's just like how these things are measured. And so, I mean, when Steve, you're saying we lost the plot, yeah, the plot is wins and losses. Like, and that's
absolutely. You know, the only number that counts, the only number in this game that counts is the left column that has the W on it. That's the only number that counts. You know what? And I'm sorry, because if you win, you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
And you're going to play a long time. And so, you know, and I know it's easy to talk about now because times are really tough, but that's why I'm saying, you know, this is, and I love Andy Green, guys. And as you guys know, I think the world of him.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
I thought one of the things that really detracted from everything was that, hey, look, I'm only going to be here for a couple months and I'm going back. If you're a player, you're going to think, well, he's not anything to say about what my future is, huh? I thought, God, Andy, come on, you know, shit. Hey, see, look, we're going to get this going, and at the end of the year, if you want to go back, go back. But I just thought, again, I was shocked by that a little bit, and I love him. Believe me, he's one of my close friends. So.
Yeah, I was taken back a little bit too, and again, this goes back to this idea of you don't want to create a culture of losing. When you talk about young kids and how they're affected by their environment, how they're affected by, you know, constantly essentially being beaten down early in their career. There is this idea of you can create a culture where it's almost acceptable to lose. And that's something that can permeate throughout the seasons. And you have to be very, very careful with creating that.
Laura, I'm going to tell you, winners breed winning. Losers breed, they get caught up in it. It's, well, you know, and I used to tell the team, winning is a great habit. Well, you know what? Losing can be a habit too, where it's just, well, hey, look, well, we're just not good enough. That's why I said to you, Steve, and you were at the press conference when I said it. Hey, that front of that uniform, that's a major league uniform. That's a big league uniform. And if you have one on, there are expectations that come with that. And you have to play to those expectations. You're a big leaguer, play like a big leaguer. Approach things like a big leaguer. Prepare like a big leaguer. And that's why, you know, I go back. I just did a show a little bit ago. David Wright. Why did we make David Wright the captain? Because he was a big leaguer, and he respected being a big leaguer and worked at being a big leaguer. And if you have talent and you do what you prepare yourself like that, you will be successful because you're a talented guy. Yeah. Okay, that was my rant for the day. Anybody else got it?
You know what though? I will put a bow on this though, Terry, because you mentioned, you know, Andy Green. We all know Andy Green very well. Like the nice thing about a hire like this is we've all gotten to know Andy Green over the last few years in his position as farm director, and I will give him credit. He understands that development is not just about skill set; it's about developing a winning mentality. And he talks all the time about how at the minor league level, it's not just about your exit velocity. It's about, are you guys winning? Are you winning games? And when he got up here, I do think one of the things, you know, AJ Ewing hasn't played much against left-handed pitching. Like Andy thinks, and everybody thinks he's going to hit lefties, but it's not just about like, oh, let's throw him out there against lefties constantly because we're developing him. He wants these guys to look at things and say, oh, you know what? I'm not hitting against lefties because I'm not good enough to hit against lefties. I got to earn it. Like I have to earn it. Right. He doesn't want anything handed to these guys. So I do think that he has that right mindset, as did Carlos. But you have to be very careful when the season beats you down like this, that especially these guys that are going to be the future of this organization. And I think we can all agree that Ewing and Benj have been beyond impressive. Guys like McLean, who's going through it a little bit right now, his mentality beyond impressive. You want to make sure that that doesn't get lost because it can. They're very young. They're very impressive. I mean, Ewing's 21 years old. Like he's a kid. So I love their mentality right now, but it's a thin line there where it can go the wrong way if you're not careful.
I totally agree. All right. Thanks, you two.
Yeah, it's great to
You're the
have you
best.
both on. And before we let you
You're the
both
best.
go, I know we had talked briefly about a viral moment with you, Steve. We don't have time to play that clip, but we do have a photo of you and Keith Hernandez kind of reliving a Beauty and the Tramp moment in the booth at SNY. So, Marsh, do you have that picture by any chance? If not, we'll put it in post production. But uh, uh, we all have a good friend here with
There it is.
Domenico from
Oh my
Coach's
God.
Collectibles. Now there it is. Now let's be
Well,
I hope you
let's
took
be
just
frank.
one bite, Steve.
I took just one bite, and I remember in real time, because you don't know what you're going to say, really. I'm not planning these things out, and I do remember in real time saying, "Come on, let's do Lady and the Tramp." And when Keith agreed to it, I was like, "Wow, I can't believe he said yes to that." And then we do that, and he says on the air, he's like, "What's Lady and the Tramp?" That's why I said yes. He had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
way he would have said yes if he knew what I was talking about.
Well,
So-
look at that
funny
photo.
stuff.
You could see the fear in Keith's eyes if you look at that photo again. He's like, "What?"
That's beautiful.
Well, the
Hey, you
remarkable
guys be safe up there.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
The
Thanks.
remarkable
All right,
thing,
guys.
though, Coach's Collectibles is making it available. You and Keith are signing it, so it's going to be such a rare piece of memorabilia. We want to thank you all for your time today. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
thanks for
Of
having
course,
us.
guys. Always fun.
One of the most intense leadoffs that we've had here in the third season of the Terry Collins show, and everyone speaking their mind about what's happening with the New York Mets. And it was great to have TC with Laura and Steve Gelbs, because it is a dark time for the franchise, and we certainly hope that for the remainder of this season, we know that the season is lost, but it would be great just to see something happen that's positive for this team. Well, something's always positive for our friends at Tunnel to Towers Foundation. This is a very big year for them, as each and every year is. And to mark the 4th of July holiday, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is providing 30 mortgage-free homes to some of America's greatest heroes. If a first responder or a service member is killed in the line of duty and leaves behind young children, Tunnel to Towers will pay off their mortgage. And if a first responder or veteran is catastrophically injured, the foundation will provide them with a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. The 30 homes for Independence Day are being delivered to families in 19 different states. You can help Tunnel to Towers on its mission to do good by donating just $11 a month at t2t.org. And the Tunnel to Towers Steel Across America tour has completed more than half its stops. Already, people in more than 20 cities have had a chance to see and touch a steel beam recovered from the rubble at Ground Zero. The 21-foot artifact is a way for Tunnel to Towers to ensure that Americans never forget the sacrifice and heroism of 9/11. After a stop in San Francisco on July 10th, the steel beam will be displayed at T-Mobile Park in Seattle before the Mariners-Giants game on July the 17th. The tour will conclude at the World Trade Center on 9/11. For more information on the steel and its schedule, go to t2t.org. And it's one of the most dramatic and moving races you'll find anywhere. Registration is now open for the Tunnel to Towers Foundation's 5K run and walk in New York. The event retraces the heroic footsteps of New York City firefighter Stephen Siller. On 9/11, Stephen ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel to the Twin Towers, where he lost his life saving others. That's where the name Tunnel to Towers comes from. The foundation was created in Stephen's memory by his 6 surviving siblings. This year's run will take place on Sunday, September 27th. You can sign up by going to t2t.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. We will be back right after this message from Mets reliever A.J. Minter on behalf of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
I'm Mets pitcher A.J. Minter. I come from a military family, and that's why I support the mission for Tunnel to Towers. They help our military, our veterans, and our first responders. They change lives. I support Tunnel to Towers because it truly embodies what America stands for. You can do your part to help as well. A donation of $11 a month can make a big difference. Go to t2t.org to find out more. Let's go Mets, and let's help Tunnel to Towers.
Now we bring you another never forget story, remembering the 25th anniversary of 9/11 and those in the New York baseball community who will indeed never forget that tragedy. Here is baseball insider and regular contributor to our show, Laura Albanese, and it's her story of the night baseball returned to Shea Stadium after the attacks. And directly after that, a story about Elizabeth Harris, widow of U.S. Navy Commander Charles Alfonso Harris, on how Tunnel to Towers changed her life after the loss of her husband. Let's get to those stories right now.
So when baseball came back, I was watching the game. At that point, one of my brothers had moved back in to help my family, but he had the really nice TV. So I went into his room and I watched the game from there, and just in rapt attention. And I don't remember much of the game itself. I only remember how I felt, which was just like an exhale, just like, yeah. It's like, okay, this is something that I loved. Nothing's ever going to be the same, but the nuts and bolts of baseball, this stays the same. I remember panning to the stands and seeing people be emotional. The broadcast mentioning that some of these were people who had lost family members in 9/11, and that they were there. And it was just so remarkable to me just how resilient humanity is. And how these little moments, even a baseball game, can bring that resilience out. Because, it gave them something to hold on to. And of course, they were playing Atlanta. What's going to happen? They can't lose this game. That would be ridiculous. That's not how the narrative goes. That's not how this story ends. And Mike Piazza homers. And everyone is just like cheering. And you didn't know he was going to do it, but you knew he was going to do everything in his power to do it. And at that point, Mike Piazza, I would always remember Howie or the broadcast, Mike Piazza looming on deck. He was always looming on deck. And he would loom on deck, and then he would get up to the plate, and he hits this moonshot, and it is a no-doubter off the wall. And everybody is in this state of very finite, very ephemeral, but true joy. People are happy. Even people who have lost people in that moment have just this flicker of something. Nothing will ever be the same, but we can have moments. We can have moments like this, and that will never go away. And it just felt so special. And I'm like, baseball did that. Baseball did that. And it made me fall in love with the sport so much more.
After Charles passed, my biggest fear was, I think, just the unknown. But, we went from 2 incomes to not even 1 at the time because we had just moved to Florida. I wasn't working. Annika was 11 at the time and Quinn was 6. Annika is built just like him. Quinn is completely extroverted and outgoing like him. And I think for Annika, when her dad died, she was really concerned about how the bills were going to get paid. And she started calling family members, asking if there were any jobs or work that she could do for money to help pay the bills. My dad actually is the one that told me about Tunnel to Towers. I remember the phone call when Laura from Tunnel to Towers called to tell me that my mortgage was being paid off. I stopped breathing, I think, because she was like, "Are you still there?" And I just started sobbing. And I said, "Yeah, I'm still here." Tunnel to Towers paying off my mortgage meant stability. Charles loved serving his country. He loved everything about the Navy. On May 6th of 2021, he assumed command of the USS Howard. On July 28th of 2021, he was pulled off the ship for medical concerns, and we found out that he had stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma, which is gallbladder cancer. They moved us to hospice, and he and I lived in that hospice room together for 5 days until he took his last breath. So perfectly healthy on May 6th and gone by August 28th. Even though he's not with us, he's very present in our lives. Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
We will have more heartwarming stories from the Tunnel to Towers Foundation our next week's show. And now we bring on a special guest about a very special event coming up in Port Saint Lucie, Florida in October. During spring training this year, when we were filming our preseason interviews for Tunnel of Towers, I met a gentleman who worked over at Clover Park in security, and he saw my shirt, had the logo on it, and he mentioned that he helps organize a big charity golf event for T2T in Port Saint Lucie. He asked to come on the show to let everybody know about it, and Terry said, of course. So let's say hello to our friend Joe Matafiri to talk about the event that's taking place on Sunday, October 4th in Port St. Lucie. Joe, welcome to the Terry Collins Show.
Thank you.
Have you here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. I really do. We started this tournament. This will be our third year. The first year we had it at Port St. Lucie Trails, and this is also the second year. The second year we had 42 foursomes, but I can only allow 35 foursomes on that because they didn't have enough of carts. So we're fortunate that PGA took us on. They're going to give us 2 courses. Right now we're at 31 foursomes, and we're hoping to be over 60 foursomes come October 4th. The tournament in our community, there's 3 of us that got involved, myself, John Alfred, Tom Maka, and we're trying to decide on what foundation. And John Alfred is a war vet, a firefighter, not a firefighter, but a state trooper out of Rhode Island. So he came up with this. We looked into it, and we knew about it, and we jumped all over it. The first year we raised $11,000. The second year we raised $43,000. It was just amazing. And we started a committee of maybe 4, and now we have around 30. And we're bringing some outsiders into Esplanade to help us out. And it's working quite well. We're thinking that we could double that. We're hoping we get some big sponsors. Taylor Morrison really helped out. Troon helped out. And there's been also some banks that really jumped in and made some really large donations towards the tournament. In my eyes, large. In Tunnel of Towers, they weren't millions, they weren't thousands, but they were good to help us to get to the $43,000. We're excited about it. We also have a kickoff dinner. We're fortunate enough, being from Connecticut, we're friends with local oyster and clammer. So he sent down 400 clams and 400 oysters in 2 days before the tournament. We had raw clams, steamed raw oysters, steamed clams, and we had cheeseburgers and hamburgers. It was great to kick off the tournament. This year we're going to do the same thing on a Friday night, and then of course on Sunday we'll be playing the tournament. And I think we're going to be okay. I'm getting a little nervous about the foursomes. We have a lot of items in the silent auction right now in a raffle, and we're getting more and more people involved. The Tunnel and Tower has been outstanding support in this, and we're very fortunate that we do have somebody in our community. This young lady lost her husband in 2019. A crane fell on him in Alaska. 4 kids bought a house near our community, and they bought her a house. And the 4 kids are 2 of them are college age now, and they're helping out with their college tuition too. So I can't speak enough about the foundation. I can't. We'll get there. I'm hoping we get there. We will. I know we will.
Well, it sounds like you got a lot of momentum. And of course, Terry, you're familiar with all the courses down there. They're all beautiful. They're all wonderful. And Terry, of course, with your work with Tunnel of Towers as an ambassador, all the things that you see the Silla family do, and have guys like Joe put together, these charity events for them. It only helps the cause. It helps what they're trying to do with their mission. So we always take the time, if we could promote anything that involves Tunnel of Towers, we do here. So, Joe, why don't you let us know, how people can get involved, whether it's on a sponsor level or to form a team. Well, why don't you give us more information? And we do have a QR code that we'll be putting up,
Okay,
so people can
QR code.
do that.
Once you get to that QR code, and it'll open it up, and you can sign up as a foursome, twosome, single, whatever or even a double, makes no difference. And you get into it and you go that way. Also included in that, I have no problem putting down my phone number. I have no problem putting down my phone number.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you let everybody know, and then whether it's an email or phone, how they can get a hold of you for more information, or if they want to participate.
Joe, you need to, as we go into this, we get farther into the summer, as the numbers grow, hopefully in the foursomes, you need to stay in touch with me so we can put together, if there's something we need to do in September, have a little event at the club there, and that we can get some people out and see how they can help. So,
Terry, I would definitely love that, and I'll grab your information from John the next couple of days, and I'll definitely get in touch with you. And John, I will get you the information again, how to sign up. Now, Terry, I hope you can make the event. We'll love to have you.
I'm going to be there. Believe me. Don't worry about it. Yeah. I just hope the weather's good. I just haven't, I've got 3 guys that I've already talked to about playing. So, and 3 is going to lead to 10 in these group of guys. So that's why I'm saying I'm going to set up. I'm going to go over there. Actually, I'm going to try to get out there this afternoon, and I'm going to go over there and talk to them about maybe just to have a little cocktail party, maybe in early September or something, and we'll see what we can do.
Well, that would be great, and just keep me abreast too. I'm looking forward to it. Well, what's your handicap, Terry? I heard you're a pretty good golfer. Is that true?
Well, it all depends who you talk to. I'm a 6.4, so I'm okay.
Well, you could hold your own. You can hold your own. That sounds great.
Joe, I moved up a tee box too. When I turned 75, I moved up. So the courses have become just that extra 500 yards that I'm saving helped out a lot. So.
Well, yeah. Someday I'll get there. I hope. Someday I hope I get there. But this is outstanding. I'll get John all the information he needs, and I'll give him a call tomorrow, and we'll make sure it happens. Right. But I can't thank you guys enough. Honest to God, this is the best. And the foundation, Terry, and we have so many veterans and firefighters and police officers in our community in Esplanade. We're about 2 miles towards tradition from where you are.
Well,
from the golf course.
My 3 partners that I'm going to play with are all former NYPD guys. So it'll be the 4 of us.
That's going to be awesome. Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Thanks
again for the time, John.
All right, Joe, do you want me to give your phone number out, or what do you want me to do?
Give it out, put the QR, let's get this done.
Okay, we'll put it up on the screen so everyone can see it, and they can reach out to you via QR code or phone number, and we want to thank you, and best of luck coming up, and I'm so happy that you and TC are going to be connected on it.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a good day. Happy 4th of July, guys.
Thank you so much. Well, each and every week we talk to you about our friend Dom from Coach's Collectibles in New York, and we let you know that they are the source for guaranteed 100% authentic pieces of Mets history. And did you know that 10% of all sales to Coach's Collectibles NewYork.com go to Tunnel to Towers? It's just their way of helping T to T with their association with our show. Just use the TC Show promo code when checking out at their site, coachescollectiblesnewyork.com, and you get free shipping as well. And this week, we got off the phone with Dom a little while ago because of how excited everybody is for the upcoming 40th anniversary of the 1986 New York Mets, taking place at August 1st at Citi Field. He has a full replenished stock of replica championship rings from some of your favorite players on that team, and they're now all available at coachescollectiblesnewyork.com. And you can pick up these beautiful rings. They're just so realistic. They're based off of the actual rings the players got. There's Hernandez, there's Carter, Strawberry, Gooden, Hojo. There's so many of those players. So if you want rings from all of your favorite players from the 86 team, go to coachescollectiblesnewyork.com and browse the site. There's so much there for you to choose from. And he just got done taping today, or having Keith Hernandez at his office today, because that photograph, that now famous photograph of the lady in the Tramp moment that took place in the booth during a Mets game with Keith Hernandez and Steve Gelbs, Keith has signed his half of the photo, and Steve Gelbs is coming in to sign his half of the photos. So those will be available at coachescollectiblesnewyork.com, and you can pre-order those today. And just go to the site and browse around. There's so much there. If you're a Mets fan, baseball fan, New York Knicks fan, there's a ton of New York Knicks memorabilia right there at coachescollectiblesnewyork.com. So that's coaches, COACHS, collectiblesnewyork.com. And check them out. You could follow them also on Instagram, on Facebook. And we're so happy to partner with them right here at the Terry Collins Show. And speaking of the show, don't forget to follow us on our platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and X. You could listen to all of our podcasts and all of our shows directly from Apple, from Spotify, Odyssey, iHeart. No matter where you go to get your content for your favorite podcast, we are there. And that YouTube channel especially, don't forget to like and subscribe to it. Every one of our shows is there. Highlights from each one of our shows is there. We put up each and every week. So if you have missed any episodes of the show or want to see just highlights of some of the best interviews we've done, the best place to do that is to go to our youtube.com/The Terry Collins Show. And that's going to wrap up this edition of the show. I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July weekend. And once again, as always, we want to thank our creative director, Marsh, and our researcher, Dominic DiBiase. For Terry Collins, this is John Arezzi. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everyone.